The discovery of the stars held secrets, and Captain HFY had spent his entire career hunting them. His 4 arms moved across the control panels of the exploration vessel Starweaver with practiced precision. Each of his 6 eyes focused on different readouts. The Zephyrian Empire had sent him to investigate a dead system at the edge of known space, where nothing should exist except cold rocks and empty void. "Captain," called Scout Kixra from her station, her young voice cutting through the bridge's quiet hum. "I'm detecting an energy signature from the 3rd planet. It's ... Strange HFY, attention sharpened. In 40 years of exploration, strange usually meant profitable. The Empire rewarded captains who brought back new technologies, new resources, new worlds to claim. Define strange, Scout." Kixra's scaled fingers danced over her instruments. "The signature is consistent with human technology, but it's far more advanced than anything in our databases. And Captain ... According to our records, this system was declared uninhabitable 3 centuries ago." The bridge fell silent, except for the soft whir of life support systems. Humans were supposed to be extinct, their homeworld a radioactive wasteland after they destroyed themselves in endless wars. The few human colonies that had escaped Earth's fate had been absorbed into various empires or wiped out by more powerful species. They were a footnote in galactic history, remembered only as a cautionary tale about species that burned too bright and too fast. "How advanced?" HFY asked, settling into his command chair. "The power output suggests technology at least 2 centuries ahead of current human capabilities. But that's impossible. The last human colony ship was the Harmony's Dream, and it vanished 300 years ago in this very system." A chill ran down HFY's spine. The Harmony's Dream was legendary among space explorers, not for its success, but for its mystery. 10,000 humans had disappeared without a trace, their ship's wreckage never found, their fate unknown. Most assumed they had died in some catastrophic accident. "Set course for the 3rd planet," HFY ordered. "Prepare a landing team. If there are humans down there, they might have something worth our time." The journey to the planet took 6 hours. During that time, the sensors revealed more mysteries. The world was green and blue, covered in vast forests and clean oceans. Massive structures dotted the surface, their architecture unlike anything in the galactic databases. But most puzzling of all, there were no energy signatures suggesting advanced technology, no orbital defenses, no communication arrays, no signs of spacefaring capability. "It's like they went backwards," muttered Kixra as she studied the readings. "The surface looks primitive, but those power signatures are definitely coming from underground." HFY selected his team carefully. Besides Kixra, he chose Commander Vexmore, a veteran soldier with experience in first contact situations, and Dr. Yillera, their xenobiologist. 3 Zephyrians should be more than enough to handle whatever primitive humans they might encounter. The shuttle descended through clear skies toward what appeared to be the largest settlement. As they broke through the cloud layer, the true scale of the structures below became apparent. Buildings stretched for kilometers, their surfaces covered in something that looked like living vegetation but moved with too much purpose to be natural plant growth. "Look at the geometric patterns," Dr. Yillera breathed, pressing her face to the viewport. "Those vines, or whatever they are, they're arranged in perfect mathematical sequences. This isn't random growth." The landing site was a clearing surrounded by towering trees whose trunks seemed to pulse with internal light. The moment the shuttle's ramp lowered, HFY noticed something odd about the air. It was clean, purer than the recycled atmosphere of their ship, and it carried a faint sweetness that made him feel more alert than he had in years. Atmospheric analysis shows elevated oxygen levels, Kixra reported, checking her portable scanner, also detecting unknown organic compounds. Nothing immediately toxic, but recommend keeping rebreathers ready. They moved toward the settlement. In standard exploration formation, Dexmal taking point with his weapons ready, Vex-High and Dr. Yillera in the middle, Kixra watching their backs. The path was paved with stones that fit together so perfectly they seemed to have grown that way. Along the edges, flowering plants swayed in patterns that didn't match the gentle breeze. The first structure they encountered was enormous, a dome that rose at least 100 meters into the sky. Its surface was covered in what looked like a massive mural, but as they got closer, Vex-High realized the images were moving. Scenes of humans working alongside alien creatures, of ships traveling between stars, of vast gardens stretching across entire continents. Motion sensors are going crazy, Dexmal reported, his weapon trained on the building's entrance. But I'm not seeing any actual movement. That was when they heard the voice. Welcome, friends from the stars. The words came from everywhere and nowhere, spoken in perfect Zephyrian dialect. The team froze, weapons raised, scanning for the source. A figure emerged from the building's entrance, and Vex-High's breath caught. It was humanoid, but somehow more than human. Tall and graceful, with pale skin that seemed to glow from within. Most striking were the eyes, deep green and flecked with gold, holding an intelligence that seemed ancient despite the figure's youthful appearance. I am Dr. Elena Marsh, the figure said, approaching with empty hands raised in a gesture of peace. I was the chief botanist aboard the Harmony's Dream. We've been waiting for visitors like you for quite some time. Dexmal kept his weapon trained on her. That's impossible. The Harmony's Dream disappeared 3 centuries ago. You can't be that old. Elena smiled, and something about the expression sent shivers through the Zephyrian team. It wasn't threatening, but it carried depths of knowledge and experience that spoke of unimaginable time. Time moves differently here, she said simply. We've learned to work with it rather than against it. Please, lower your weapons. We mean you no harm. In fact, we have something wonderful to share with you. Dr. Yillera stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overriding caution. How are you still alive? Human lifespans are less than a century, even with medical technology. We made a bargain, Elena replied, gesturing toward the living walls around them. When we arrived here, we found this world was already inhabited, not by animals or sentient beings as you might understand them, but by a vast network of plant consciousness. They had been waiting for partners, for a species that could help them reach the stars. As she spoke, the vines on nearby buildings began to glow more brightly, and Vex-High felt that alertness in his mind growing stronger. His vision was becoming sharper, his hearing more acute. Even his scales felt more sensitive to the air currents. Around them, what's happening to us? Kixra asked, her voice filled with wonder rather than fear. Elena's eyes sparkled with an emotion Vex-High couldn't identify. The garden is greeting you. Every breath you take here carries spores, microscopic, partners that want to help you become more than you are. Don't worry, the process is entirely voluntary. But once you experience what we've experienced, most species choose to stay. Dexmal's weapon wavered. Choose to stay. What do you mean? I mean we stopped being just human 300 years ago, Elena said, spreading her arms wide. We became something new, something better. We kept our minds, our personalities, our love for each other, but we gained so much more. Longevity, enhanced abilities, a connection to the living world that you can't imagine. She gestured toward the settlement around them. This isn't just a human colony anymore. It's a partnership between two forms of life, each making the other stronger. We've been waiting for other species to discover us, to share in what we've found. The implications hit Vexai like a plasma bolt. A human colony that had somehow achieved biological immortality and enhanced capabilities. Technology that could transform entire species. The Empire would pay fortunes for such knowledge, or they would simply take it by force. But looking into Elena's ancient tongue eyes, he realized she knew exactly what he was thinking. "We're not afraid of your empire, Captain," she said softly. "We've had 3 centuries to prepare for contact, but we'd prefer friendship to conquest. The garden teaches patience, understanding, growth through cooperation rather than domination." "Prove it," Vexmal said, though his weapon had lowered. "Completely. Show us what you've become." Alina nodded and closed her eyes. The air around her shimmered, and the plants throughout the settlement responded. Vines began moving with obvious intelligence, flowers opened in perfect synchronization, and the very ground beneath their feet hummed with life energy. When she opened her eyes again, they were glowing with the same golden-green light as the vegetation around them. "We are the garden, and the garden is us. We are what humanity became when it chose growth over destruction, symbiosis over conquest." She looked at each of the Zephorians in turn. "The question is, what will your people choose to become?" As if summoned by her words, Kixra-S communicator crackled to life. "Landing team, this is the Starweaver. We're detecting massive power surges from your location. Are you under attack?" Vexhai took the communicator with trembling hands, his mind racing through possibilities and implications. "Negative, Starweaver. We're making first contact." "Understood, Captain. Be advised. We're also detecting an Imperial battle group jumping into the system. ETA approximately 6 hours." The color drained from Vexhai's face. Imperial battle groups didn't come for exploration or diplomacy. They came for conquest and resource extraction. Whatever the Empire had learned about this world, they wanted it badly enough to send warships. Elena's expression didn't change, but the plants around them rustled with what sounded almost like laughter. "Right on schedule," she murmured. "We've been expecting them to." The garden's secret, the underground city, defied every expectation Vexhai had formed about human capabilities. Alina led them through tunnels that descended deep into the planets. Crust, walls lined with bioluminescent plants that provided perfect lighting. The air remained sweet and energizing, and with each breath, the Zephyrian team felt their senses growing sharper. "How deep does this go?" Dr. Yillara asked, running her instruments along the tunnel walls. The readings made no sense. The walls appeared to be alive, responding to their presence with subtle color changes and what felt like gentle pulses of warmth. "The garden extends through most of the planet's upper mantle," Alina replied, her voice carrying easily through the corridor. "Despite their distance from each other. Root systems, communication networks, processing centers. We're not just living on this world anymore. We're part of it." They emerged into a vast cavern that took Vexhai's breath away. The space stretched beyond the range of his enhanced vision, filled with structures that seemed grown rather than built. Spires of living were twisted toward the ceiling, their surfaces covered in flowers that glowed like stars. Between them, bridges of woven vines connected different levels of the city. And along those bridges walked figures that were unmistakably human, but somehow more. These humans moved with impossible grace, their eyes bright with intelligence, and something else, something that spoke of deep connection to the living world around them. Some tended gardens that floated in mid-air, their roots drawing nutrients from the atmosphere itself. Others worked with tools that looked more like extensions of themselves than separate objects. "There are thousands of you," Kixra whispered, her young voice filled with awe. "Tens of thousands," Elena corrected gently. "The original 10,000 from the Harmony's dream, plus the children born in partnership with the garden. Each generation grows stronger, more connected, more capable." A figure approached them from one of the bridges, moving with fluid steps that made no sound. He appeared to be a young human male, but his eyes held the same ancient depth as Elena. When he spoke, his voice harmonized with itself, as if multiple people were speaking in perfect unison. "I am Marcus Chen," he said, inclining his head in greeting. "I was 5 years old when we arrived here. I am now 305, and I serve as one of the garden's guardians." Dexmel's hand moved instinctively toward his weapon. "Guardians? Against what?" Marcus smiled, and flowers bloomed along the bridge behind him in response to some unspoken signal. "Against those who would harm the garden or its partners. We learned long ago that not all species come in peace." Elena placed a gentle hand on Marcus's arm. "Show them the choice chambers. They need to understand before the Imperial fleet arrives." Marcus nodded and gestured for them to follow. They walked deeper into the city, past workshops where humans crafted objects that seemed to grow in their hands, past schools where children learned to communicate with plants as easily as they did with each other, past medical centers where the line between healing and gardening had been completely erased. "The garden doesn't just extend our lives," Elena explained as they walked. "It enhances everything we are: strength, speed, intelligence, empathy. But most importantly, it gives us perspective. When you know you have centuries to solve a problem, you think differently about solutions." The choice chambers were circular rooms with walls covered in a soft, moss-like growth that pulsed gently with inner light. In the center of each room stood a single chair, its surface appearing to be carved from living wood. "This is where the partnership begins," Marcus explained. "The garden extends an invitation through spores you've already breathed, but the true joining requires conscious choice. Sit in the chair, open your mind to the connection, and become part of something larger than yourself." Dr. Yillera stepped forward, her scientific mind clearly fascinated. "What exactly happens during the process?" Elena's eyes grew distant, as if remembering something from long ago. "The garden's consciousness merges with yours, not replacing your thoughts or personality, but adding to them. You remain yourself, but you also become part of a vast network of living intelligence that spans the entire planet." "And the enhancements," Vexai asked. "Are a natural result of the partnership," Marcus replied. "The garden optimizes biological processes, repairs genetic damage, enhances natural capabilities. But the real gift is the connection itself. Imagine never being truly alone, always being part of something greater, while still maintaining your individuality." Kixra approached one of the chairs, her young face bright with curiosity. "Does it hurt?" "No," Elena said softly. "It feels like coming home." Before anyone could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the city. Not harsh mechanical sirens, but a harmonic chorus from the plants themselves, beautiful and urgent. At the same time, the Imperial fleet has arrived early, Marcus announced, his eyes glowing brighter as he accessed information through the Garden network. 12 warships, full assault configuration. They're demanding immediate surrender of all human settlements. Vexai felt his stomach drop. 12 Imperial warships could reduce the planet's surface to molten slag. You have to evacuate. Get everyone underground, deeper than they can reach. Alina and Marcus exchanged a look that seemed to communicate volumes. Then Alina smiled, that same ancient young expression that spoke of secrets and vast knowledge. Captain, you still don't understand what we've become. The walls around them suddenly became transparent, revealing the true scope of the underground city. It wasn't just vast, it was endless, stretching in all directions through caverns and tunnels that honeycombed the entire planet. And rising from the depths came something that made Vexai's knees weak. It was a ship. But calling it a ship was like calling a mountain a pebble. The vessel was alive, its hull covered in the same glowing vegetation that lined the tunnels. It pulsed with power that made the Imperial warships look like toys, and as it rose toward the surface, smaller craft detached from its surface like seeds from a flower. 3 centuries of partnership with the Garden taught us many things, Marcus said, his voice now carrying harmonics that resonated in the living walls around them. How to grow technology instead of building it. How to think in geological time. How to prepare for visitors who might not come in peace. Through the Garden network, images flashed across the transparent walls. The Imperial fleet, confident in their superior firepower, had arranged themselves in standard attack formation. The lead ship was broadcasting surrender demands in multiple languages, threatening to commence bombardment if the humans didn't respond within 1 hour. They received their response sooner than expected. The living ship broke. The planet's atmosphere, like a breaching whale, its massive form dwarfing the Imperial vessels. But instead of attacking, it simply positioned itself between the fleet and the planet's surface. Then it began to sing. The sound reached them even in the deep chambers, a harmonic resonance that seemed to vibrate through every living cell. It wasn't threatening or aggressive. It was welcoming, inviting, offering something precious beyond measure. "What is it doing?" Dexville whispered, his warrior's instincts telling him to prepare for battle while his enhanced senses told him something else entirely. "Offering the same choice we were offered 3 centuries ago," Alina replied. Garden doesn't believe in conquest or destruction. It believes in growth, in partnership, in becoming more than any single species could be alone. On the screens showing the Imperial fleet, something unprecedented was happening. The ships were not firing. Instead, landing bays were opening, and shuttles were launching toward the living vessel. The song of the Garden was reaching them too, carried on radio frequencies in quantum fields, offering the same invitation that the Zephyrian team had received. "The spores travel through space," Marcus explained, noting their amazed expressions. "Every breath your people have taken since entering this system has prepared them for this moment. The Garden is patient, but it's also thorough." Over the next several hours, they watched as delegation after delegation from the Imperial fleet made their way to the living ship. Some came armed and suspicious, others came with scientific curiosity. All of them emerged, changed, their eyes bright with the same golden-green glow that marked the Garden's partners. "Will they still be Zephyrians?" Kixra asked, her hand resting on one of the choice chairs. They will be more than Zephyrians, Alina replied, just as we are more than human. The garden doesn't erase what you are. It adds to what you could become. Admiral Kextrin, commander of the Imperial fleet, was among the last to make the journey to the living ship. When he returned, his message to the Empire was brief and transformative. Mission parameters have changed. We have found not a primitive human colony, but the future of biological evolution. Request immediate diplomatic contact and scientific exchange. As news of the discovery spread through Imperial space, more ships began arriving. Not warships, but exploration vessels, scientific research ships, and eventually civilian transports full of volunteers eager to experience the gardens. Gift. The Zephyrian team from the Starweaver faced their own choice. They could return to their ship, file their report, and spend the rest of their normal lifespans remembering what they had seen. Or they could sit in the chairs, open their minds to connection with something vast and ancient and wise, and become part of a story that was just beginning. Kixra was the first to choose, settling into the living wood chair with a smile of anticipation. The moment her skin made contact with the surface, the chamber filled with soft light and the sound of growing things. Her transformation was beautiful. To watch her scales taking on new colors, her eyes brightening with connection to the vast network of consciousness that spanned the planet. Dr. Yilera followed, a scientific mind eager to experience the ultimate merger of biology and consciousness. Then Naxmile, the warrior finding peace in partnership rather than conquest. Vexhai was the last, looking at Alina with questions in his eyes. What happens to the Empire, to the old ways? They evolve, she replied simply. The garden is patient. It will wait for each species to be ready to choose growth over destruction, partnership over domination. But it will wait, growing stronger, more connected, more capable of offering the gift of true unity. As Vexhai settled into the chair, he felt the garden's consciousness touch his mind. Not invasive or overwhelming, but gentle, welcoming, like coming home after a long journey. In that moment, he understood what Alina had meant about perspective. When you were part of something that thought in geological time, that saw species as children learning to walk rather than enemies to be conquered, everything changed. The garden had waited billions of years for partners. It could wait billions more for each species to find its way to the choice chambers, to discover that becoming more than themselves didn't mean losing what they were. In the depths of space, word spread from system to system, species to species. Humanity hadn't died out after all. They had evolved, partnered, become something new and wonderful, and they were sharing their gift with anyone ready to receive it. The age of conquest was ending. The age of the garden was beginning. And in the living cities that grew beneath the surface of a forgotten world, children of a dozen species learned to tend gardens that sang with the music of growing things, while their parents planned journeys to distant stars, where other worlds waited to join the ever-expanding network of consciousness that had once been human, but was now something infinitely more. The silent garden was silent no more. It sang with the voices of countless species choosing partnership over isolation, growth over destruction, and a future that no single world could have imagined alone.